In terms of what the government's involvement here is, I mean, some of these projects obviously will be with the help of the government, but there'll be some people in the Highlands and the North East who'll say, well, we're slightly doing this despite the government as well, because your role here is to provide the infrastructure and to give people the tools to do this. And of course, we know there have been problems with the dualling of the A9 despite decades of promises. The A96, who knows what's happening there at this particular moment. Dualling of the rail line between Perth and Inverness, talk of that for a very long time in terms of supporting business. Do you accept that your government could and should do more?
Well, I accept in order to deliver the scale here, we need to work very closely together with Highlands and Islands Enterprise, with public bodies, but also with the private sector. So there are some projects which are necessarily led by the public sector. So you mentioned some in regard to road. But there are others where the government has more of a facilitating role, where we can go out with private sector operators to try and secure external sources of funding. So of that £100 billion, it's not breaking news to suggest that not all of that can be met by public sector funding. It will require private sector investment. Now, Scotland already leads the way when it comes to inward investment. So we currently exceed for 9 years the ability to attract private investment, the best place outside London and the South East for attracting private investment. The key is that with a joined up pipeline, you're more likely to attract bigger funders. So if each of these projects went out to secure private funding, they might not even register on investors' radars. When we start talking about £100 billion, they start to register, and people know that there are opportunities in the Highlands, and the government then has a role, I think, to facilitate, to bridge that gap, which is why the First Minister has tasked me with the job across government to attract investment and to ensure that there is flows of investment.
We know, of course, that the UK government wants to change planning regulation in England. They say that that is a hindrance to the kind of development that they'd like to see there. Do we have the same problem in Scotland? Do we need change?
Well, on a lot of these big projects, it's a question of consenting. Now, the Scottish Government's doubled its consenting team in the period up to Christmas so that we can get through more applications faster because of the number of additional applications. So there are changes we've already made. In the most recent programme for government, there was a big focus on planning. Master plan consent areas, which essentially give planning upfront, planning confirmation upfront to major developers. Because one of the points here is that in and around the Inner Murray Firth, there will need to be 25,000 additional homes in order for the workers to be located here in order to work on these projects.
And this is always a problem in the Highlands, particularly, isn't it, in terms of development versus preserving what is unique and what is beautiful about the Highlands. It's not just about homes, although they have been controversial, but wind farms, all kinds of different projects that may well bring the kind of economic growth that you're talking about, but people have to live with them.
Well, that's exactly right, and why a planning system has to get the balance between listening to local concerns and taking into account environmental impact, but then also recognising where a project is absolutely vital. And you know the biggest challenge facing the Highlands and Islands right now is demographic decline. So if you look at the coastal areas and the island areas in particular, it's an ageing population and it's a dwindling population. And whilst the population across Scotland has seen some positive signs of growth in recent years, most of that is concentrated in our cities. So that will have stark implications for public services. It will have stark implications for schools closing and so on. So I really can't emphasise the importance of this £100 billion worth of investment pipeline being used to stimulate growth and prosperity right across the Highlands and Islands, because that historically is what's always stimulated growth in the Highlands and Islands. Strategic economic interventions that take people with them, but ultimately deliver housing, deliver jobs, and fill our schools more full than they are right now.
In the next 45 minutes or so, the Prime Minister is going to give a press conference backing up what we heard from the Home Secretary yesterday. The immigration white paper from the UK government comes forward this morning. Ministers are looking to bring down net migration. Yvette Cooper says that care workers will no longer be recruited from overseas. This is a particular crisis in the Highlands, although it's a Scotland-wide issue. Is this the right approach?
I listened to those points with absolute astonishment, having just shared what I've shared about the demographic challenges across the Highlands and Islands, but across Scotland as well. We know that one of the most pressing issues that investors, developers, public services tell us right now is being able to recruit a workforce. And with a small population of about 5 million people, Scotland needs a distinct immigration system, a distinct approach to the immigration system. We have shared that with the UK government, but you talk about restrictions to care workers, which I think is absolutely baffling to anybody currently working in the care sector, talking about restrictions for university students being able to stay on after their degrees when we know so much of Scotland's economic growth has come from international students that have chosen to be based in Scotland. So our approach remains that if the UK government isn't going to do it, then Scotland needs a distinct approach to an immigration system, whether that's a Scottish visa or otherwise.
And that's fine and well, but the problem with the care sector is not just, as you've outlined, about bringing people in from overseas, it's also about funding. And they've been saying for a long time that, in fact, Donald McCaskill from Scottish Care said 90% of members have seen significant reductions in care packages bought by local authorities because they're cash-strapped. 48% of his members say they don't believe they'll be in business this time next year. There is an ongoing issue here about the amount of funding that the Scottish Government is putting into this very vital service.
Well, I think we can have a conversation about funding and just set out in the most recent budget an increase again to NHS and social care budget. But I think it's doing a disservice to the arguments to dismiss the fact that we also need a workforce. And we know the challenges around delayed discharge. We know that it means waiting times increase. So we know the system's all combined here and integrated. And we need a workforce. And the primary reason why we've had challenges on our workforce over the last few years is because of the ending of freedom of movement and restrictions around the visa system. And setting, for example, unnaturally high bars for salary or for wage means that some of the core workers we actually need in this country can't come. So I am in no doubt whatsoever that our care system is going to suffer from the changes that reportedly are going to be made today.